So as a result of this charge that we were given, that they were given before I came into the position in 2020, because it was days before the pandemic. Literally, they had a symposium, the pandemic hit and everything shut down. And if you know Brent Leggs, the senior VP at the National Trust, who manages the Action Fund, he was the keynote speaker and he gave a charge. So I want to share that. I can figure out this technology with you. All right, I'm trying to advance. I don't have a mouse. I'm going up, I'm going down. All right, oh, here's my mouse, okay. All right, so here are our lovely fellows in this first slide. And again, I'll introduce them to you in just a moment. The mission that we have for PVA can be found on our website. We're doing a lot of revamping of many things as a result of the Mellon funding that we were able to receive. So you'll be seeing that hopefully in May, you'll see the new website. Let's see. So this is a short, like 3-minute video of Brent Leggs giving us the charge, giving Preservation Virginia the charge at the symposium. So you may see some familiar faces.
Can this preservation community set an ambitious and contemporary vision for our nation? Can we demonstrate the role of preservation to make amends and to reconcile our paths?
I welcome you and thank you for participating in this mini conference today. So many African-American sites are disappearing. We're losing more every day. So I think with the work that all of you do is so vital to our country and to our nation, so that people understand the vital role that African-Americans have played in our history from the beginning of time until as enslaved persons to the present day.
We have to begin to uncover and find places that highlight sites of business and entrepreneurship.
More African-American sites are being recognized and preserved so that we acknowledge Black people's accomplishments and contributions to this great country.
So when I had the opportunity to literally touch the physical evidence of our past, I knew that this work was what I should do as my career. It was both personal, it was professional.
And so in preserving this history, we are working to make sure no one has the indignity not knowing their history.
Today's brought these lessons together about how to organize, connect, activate the voices that build a strong and very visible movement as we move forward. That's the way we have something that's unstoppable.
Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our will come to the place for which our fathers sighed.
All right, and some of you may have seen yourself in the video. Viola Baskerville sitting here and also in the video. That's how it started. And it's amazing how a group of people, and you saw Elizabeth Costelny, who just retired after 34 years with Preservation Virginia. Our new CEO is Will Glasgow. And so we continue with this initiative. We move forward. This was it. We start in Virginia. So Black history is American history.
Yes.
And we need to say, I feel emboldened now with what, happened this morning. I felt like I went to church. We don't need permission to start this revolution. We don't have to be quiet about whether we do this or not. We ask for forgiveness, all these things. We need to tell a fuller story. And this whole idea of embracing your spaces, and I tell my students all the time, what are the two things that Black folks own and operate? And that's the Black church and HBCUs. And so we need to take back our own, or step into our own power and make it happen. And you're doing it every day. And so what Britton Legs was referring to is he read a New Yorker article in the New Yorker that said that 1% of preservationists are Black. So we interviewed him also this summer, not in this video that you're going to see, but I said to him, I agree and I disagree. I think technically, if we look at statistics, yes, there's 1% architects, historians, archaeologists, and anthropologists who have degrees, if you will, library science, in these preservation fields, African American studies, Black studies. But there's a little church lady who's keeping the record at her church, who's keeping the record of all the funeral programs. There's someone who's maintaining the church cemetery. And they might not have a degree in anything, but they are preservationists. And so we need to grow this number, recognize this number. And I have 5, and this is the second cohort. So every summer, and I'm just, believing through church this morning, the Holy Ghost, that we will have this forever, even when I'm gone from Preservation, Virginia, that we will always have this fellowship. And so the Jesse DuPont Ball Fund funded the first year cohorts where we had the first cohort where we had 3 fellows at $7,500 each. So you basically take 90 days and do a research project pertaining to Virginia-based space research about African American. And one of the things we told Mellon we would do was also move to recognizing Native American populations as well. So we're hoping with the third cohort that we'll be able to do that. So they gave us money to kick it off. And then when I got there, I was like, now I did 20 years of fundraising before I got into preservation. So I said, we need to reach out to the Mellon Foundation. We were able to get a grant of $500,000 over 2 years to continue this work. And so now we have 5 slots at $10,000 each for fellowship. And again, you may have some idea, you may already be working, and you'll see, many of the fellows are already doing the work. So we're really picking up the work that they're already doing and continuing. And they're not finished. They're still living in those spaces and making it happen. And so I want to show you what they did this summer. And then after this, we'll go into Q&A. And so this slide just tells you a little bit about the fellowship and what we want to do in growing this 1%. I created this group called the 1%ers. One of the things, have t-shirts and everything, literally. One of the things that I want to make sure that we understand is that I can't stop with 5. And so I also created what I call the collective. So if you didn't get picked for one of the 5 slots, there's still a group of us. Because that defeats the purpose if I have 45 applicants and then I just say, okay, well, I'm going with this 5. No, it includes what I call the collective. And so we all work together. And I will say, just being honest, I said this last year, I didn't even know that Preservation Virginia existed until I was in a graduate program, or in an undergraduate program, actually. People, during the pandemic, I got another degree. That's what I did. And so I always wanted to study Africana studies. And so I enrolled at BCU. I was working at BCU, and you could pick an internship. And so I was like, I think I'll intern with Preservation Virginia. And that's how I learned about them, as an internship site. So we've got to find out a way, how do we get this word out? How do we communicate it? And so let me stop talking, because I can talk. Professor, we talk. This is the video from this summer. I don't know if I should be admitting these people or what. All right, let's hope it works. This is 20 minutes.
African American history here in the city, storytelling. We're just locked in on stories now.
My grandparents went to this school. My grandmother would tell the story about going to the school.
My degree is not a history professor, but it's something that kind of gravitated toward. I've always said if I didn't study music, I would study history.
My project is focusing on Black cemeteries altogether, but specifically Evergreen Cemetery here in Richmond, Virginia.
What I'm looking at are families who lived along Graves Creek. I am valuing them. I'm looking at them, you know, through a different set of lenses.
Michael Johnson. Born and raised here in Alexandria, Virginia. So about 7 years ago, prior to my mother passing, we would ride past Douglas Cemetery, and it would look like it was abandoned. It was full of vegetation and shrubbery and everything. And she would always say, "You have family members buried over here." I said, "Mom, there's nothing over there but trees and woods. None of my people are buried here. It can't be anywhere else people over in this cemetery." At the time, we didn't even know the name of the cemetery. I heard telling me, and I was riding past it, that I had family members over there. I was very inquisitive about that. I wanted to see who they were. So I went over to one of the local funeral homes and I started to inquire about some of the names that I knew were family members, found out where they were buried at. And lo and behold, Green Funeral Home gave me a list of about 8 of my relatives that were buried over in Douglas. So by me researching those funeral homes and going over to the cemetery and actually finding my family members, started wondering how did they end up in a cemetery that was in despair. So I was intrigued by this because now I'm finding out some of my family history. And it was history that was never told by my parents. I started locating different grave sites. And then I saw that some of the headstones were falling over, some of them had been broken. The cemetery grass was high again. So I started advocating for that cemetery, not knowing what I was getting myself into, because right now it's been about 7 years and ongoing. And when I'm looking at this project, probably be here for the next 20 years until I can really find all the information I need. I took it personal because my family members was there. But while I was concentrating on them, some said, "Well, what about the other people?" So that made me say, well, I gotta find their family members as well, because maybe there's a link in here somewhere for all of us to find some type of closure. But all the research and the data that was written by Mr. Pittman. If it wasn't Mr. Pittman, Douglas Cemetery would no longer exist. And I think by him doing his research back in the earlier year, it gave us a road map to where I'm at now. I wanted to find other people that had loved ones buried there. So from that phase, I went on to just started documenting on my own the work that I had been doing. A lot of the African American history here in the city, the stories haven't been told. We're just locked in on the stories now. So I want to make sure that while we focus in on the stories, that we get as clear a picture as we can of those buried at Douglas Cemetery. A lot of historical people are buried in Douglas Cemetery that made big contributions to the city and what it is today. And I don't want to see their efforts go to waste. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my dad couldn't talk. So what they couldn't say, I'm going to say, and I'm going to make sure that their story is told. And not only their story, but the story of the 2,200 people buried at Douglas Cemetery. In Douglas, I want to put a memorial granite wall for Professor Frederick Douglass. But my main goal is to make sure that I preserve the history of Frederick Douglass Cemetery and why it was named after Frederick Douglass. In September, we're going to start where they're going to level the ground, mark some of the graves off, fill it in with dirt and level it out, remove some of the headstones and replace them. We'll mark them and replace them. And the good thing about it is that some of the stakeholders and the descendants can be a part of the restoration of it. What this fellowship means to me is it's giving me the opportunity to share with others what preservation work is really about, what history is really about. It will enhance and enrich the work that needs to be done in government. It's helping me and us get to the finish line, and I think that's very important.
I'm originally from Albemarle County, from this neighborhood. So I grew up here. The stories that I tell of African American history center around this neighborhood and Charlottesville and the state of Virginia. Growing up here was special for me. I grew up riding up and down this road all day long, with my grandmother having to call down to someone's house for me to come home to eat. My grandparents went to this school. So growing up, my grandmother would tell me stories about going to the school. And I would ride my bike past the school back and forth all day long. Years later, I kind of learned more about the history of the school and wanted to get involved. So this project with the fellowship is centered around the St. John Rosenwald School, but also is an oral history of the 16 or so alumni that are still with us from this school. The school opened in 1922 and it closed in 1954. This project follows the alumni and their experiences as students at this school. But it not only tells the story of the experiences of the alumni here at the school, but also connects us to the nearby church and the experiences there, as well as the fact that many of the alumni also went on to desegregate Albemarle County schools in 1963 and are the descendants of the former enslaved. The importance of oral history in African American culture is that we need to tell our own stories. A lot of times, these stories are not stories that are in books, that are taught in schools. Only our elders can tell these stories straight from their experiences. We're able to attach ourselves to our elders and allow them to guide us through their stories and their experiences. I think that's very valuable, but also our elders are passing on and no longer with us. Even in the work that I do and the films that I make, a lot of folks have passed on that have been in previous films, but now we have them on camera sharing those histories with us directly. The African American Fellowship has helped this work, one, to kind of organize people together in telling the story, and for me, helping me to connect with like-minded people within their projects, and also Preservation Virginia is working towards a common goal of preserving African American history and African American stories through this fellowship. I hope that this project will be one that gives life to the building. My hopes is that as school groups come into the building, the next generation comes into the building for school trips and they learn more about the building, that they'll also learn more about the people who were here and learned here through the documentary directly from those voices. This project is really important to me because this neighborhood is where I feel most at home. I love to travel. I've lived in other places, but this place is always home. Some of the elders that would watch me as I would ride my bike up and down the road, they're still here today and they're still sitting in those same front porches. And now they're watching me as I drive by, blow my horn and wave at them as they're on their porch knitting, Miss Bird is doing her stamp collection on the front porch and that sort of thing. So this community is important to me. There's so much of my own family history right here within just, a couple of square miles. And I'm dedicated to it, to preserving it. A lot of times with our elders, we won't get certain answers unless we ask the right question. You're not necessarily going to have them freely just tell you stories, but if you jog their memory, you'll learn some amazing things about where you come from and those folks that came before. You reach out to your elders and spend time with them. I think if we don't tell our own stories and tell our own history, that not only will they not get told, but they'll be even further lost.
Grew up here in Brevard County, graduated from high school, came through the school system, And then I went off to Longwood College and studied music education. My degree is not in history, that's for sure. But it's something that kind of gravitated toward. I've always said if I didn't study music, I would study history. And how I got kind of into the history side of things is for African American History Month. Kind of fell in my lap to produce something for our high school shows. And so part of that was producing music, getting students to learn some African American music, and then start digging into the history of African American history, civil rights movement, gospel music, the gamut of the African American experience. What I'm doing for Preservation Virginia really is twofold. Number one, we're identifying historic sites here in Fluvanna County, especially kind of south of the Rivanna River and along the James River. And I'm identifying those sites for the purpose of showing that African Americans really built these places. And they're so much part of the African American experience. Part one is kind of to identify them, build them, and do commentary. And then the second part is to get what we call descendant engagement. Because in a lot of these areas, those people who worked on the plantations that were on the James and the Rivanna, their descendants are still here. But we have been systematically cut off from our history as African Americans. And so my goal is to reattach our lives to these places and spaces so that as African Americans, we can begin to take ownership of the places that we live. All this process really does come down to my family. My family was enslaved by John Howard Wilcox on this plantation called Remo. And as a child, we kind of knew that that was the case. And also as a child, we grew up 3 miles from the plantation. And so as I found this out, and then we began to attach names and places and people and cemeteries and the whole story of my family being in this area since the late 1700s was just very empowering. One of the greatest things that it does for me is you just know how deep and how long your family has been in a place. You know, the same, you know, I grew up on a road called Teepee Town Road. You know, that same road as a kid, I was riding my bike and, you know, walking with my sisters, and 4 generations before me were doing the same thing. They were walking on these same paths, same roads. And so it just gives you such a deep sense of ownership and place and belonging. Like there is a place where your family started. And a lot of African Americans don't have that. That's really changed my sense of where I live. So I want to be involved in my community because my ancestors were involved in this and part of building. This African American Fellowship program, I think first and foremost, it kind of legitimized what I'm doing. People are recognizing the work. And so you feel like you're on the right path. And it makes me kind of go further into these ideas. Coming out on the other side of this, I feel like that maybe I'll be able to produce a better product, be more succinct in my storytelling, and get those technical skills down well. The importance of preserving this history is because at this time in America and in our society, there is a real push to kind of reshape the narrative, change the narrative, re-emphasize what's important, what's not important. And we know systemically and historically, African American places and stories have been pushed to the side. So I think now is so important to really bring these stories to bear and to just, you know, whether you're Black or white or whatever culture you're coming from, that you understand that African Americans have been here from the beginning.
So I was born and raised here in Richmond, Virginia. I grew up in the North Side around so many historic places. So I had all of these historic and wonderful role models around me during that time. So I was greatly, deeply honored to be a part of Preservation Virginia. My project is focusing on Black cemeteries altogether, but specifically Evergreen Cemetery here in Richmond, Virginia. Evergreen was founded in 1891, and it has had its ups and downs ever since. Evergreen has so many stories embedded into the cemetery. It is about 60 acres of people interred there, ancestors, all either African American, Indian. They have some Asians that are buried there. It's amazing to see the stories that I have uncovered so far. Evergreen has had its downs as well. For about 50 to 60 years, it has been unkept. So people have taken it upon their own personal selves to go in to kind of clean up Evergreen Cemetery. And that's one of the reasons why I chose that Evergreen to be a part of my project. It's really important that we do African American cemetery work because there are a lot of lives at stake here. Because Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy, African Americans had to go through a lot of turmoil and a lot of strife. They had to go through a lot of what we don't have to go through today. So it's because of them that many African Americans are where they are today. It's because of the off of the backs of their hard work and off of their emotional turmoil that they had to endure. Preservation Virginia has helped me with more research tools, a network of individuals that I can talk to in regards to cemetery or just in preservation altogether. It's also put me in front of preservationists that I didn't know looked like me. So I feel honored to be a part of this population now, to be able to make an impact and for today and for my children and my children's children. What I hope to accomplish with my Preservation Virginia project is a plethora of things. Starting the project, I just didn't know how deep and how much of a rabbit hole that I would go into. And it just took me on a lot of branches that I just didn't know was there. I can find records for Evergreen. I found the oldest continuous running funeral in Richmond, Virginia, which is Scott's Funeral Home. And I found that Mr. Lambert had all the records starting from 1910. And I was able to go through those records. And what I found is that they say there are only 10,000 individuals interred at Evergreen Cemetery. And I found a record that said that in the new section alone, it's 45,000 graves to be sold. So between 1891 to 1950, how many other headstones or graves that they have? So it's more than 10,000. So one of the things that I wanted to do with this project is to kind of debunk some of the untruths that are out there. I know that I would eventually go along this path to do this work. Preservation Virginia has helped me in doing so. It's sped up my process, of course, and it's given me the tools to do the process in a systematic and technical way. My final product from this work is one, I'm going to do a research presentation. And within that presentation, I'll talk about some of the individuals that are interred there. I am actually putting together a website for Evergreen Cemetery. What I want to do with the website is to open it up for individuals who have stories of their family to send that information in. And then we can place their story on the website so that people can find family. People can do the things that they need to do in their genealogical and historical research as well.
I was born at Fort Lee, and now it's Fort Gregg Adams in Prince George's County, a long time ago, 1961. So, one rural homes in eastern Virginia. There's no interstate, and so it has missed a lot of development. The pace is slower, and there was a time before I left home that I knew everything. This project is a project of genealogy. What I'm looking at are families who lived along Grace Creek. I've been doing genealogical research since 1980. I stumbled into this type of research. My father died in 1980 of colon cancer. And I was 19 years old. I fell or plunged into just a pretty pitiful place of grief and depression. I discovered that what I was really looking for and what I needed was connection. With his death, I felt that connection was lost. And I can remember working on a school project, and I was in the basement of Alderman Library. And I happened to pass by the door of the public documents for the state. It just so happened that the break in records was between Surrey County and Southampton County. And if it was a break, that meant that the name of the county would have been on the drawer. Well, there was Surrey County, Virginia. No, I'm in Charlottesville. How do they have Surrey County, Virginia records? So I just pulled the drawer out, being nosy. There was microfilm or census records for Surrey. I began to look at it and I found a family that was hidden by Martha J. Harrison. Underneath her name was the name Patrick Harris. I knew it was my family because all of the names that followed Patrick, I recognized. I even saw my great grandfather's name. I said, you know, this is incredible. And I started writing down all those names. I was able to bring those generations forward and make the connections with all of the people that I knew at home. The advice that I would give to persons starting or interested in genealogical research is to start with older family members. Get some stories and identify some names. And so when you begin to research, you can at least be familiar with these names. It never dawned on me that the people I was researching basically lived along the creek. And as I continue to look at this, the common theme between the homesteads or in land ownership for this group of people was Gray's Creek. It is helping me to understand and to appreciate more the property that they may have purchased, the things that they may have inherited, and valuing them, looking at them, you know, through a different set of lenses. The Preservation of Virginia African American Fellowship gives it, you know, in my mind, a little more credibility. Somebody has recognized it as being valuable. It's valuable to me, but Preservation of Virginia, and particularly the African American Fellowship Program, has indicated that this is valuable and can be valuable to many others. It is my hope that I'm able to publish this for future generations, to put it in a form, to hand it off, and these young people can take this as a foundation piece and pass it on even to future generations.
Okay, so I'm gonna have the fellowship participants come up. I'm gonna introduce very briefly because you've seen them on the screen. Dr. James Mitchell Harrison is an American Baptist clergyman who served congregations across the Commonwealth of Virginia since 1982. He was reared in Surrey County, as you heard, and his project was around Grace Creek. And they'll tell you about the waterways in their communities, so you'll hear more about that. And so he also resides in Surrey County and holds membership as a life member of the Surrey County Historical Society and Museums. Dr. Harrison. Michael Johnson, as you've heard, is a community outreach specialist for the city of Alexandria, and I'm hoping he will also share with you how these connections with the city, his descendant work and his descendant group helped move the needle with what he is doing. He is a graduating senior at Coppin State University. I told him he better give me that date so I can be at the graduation, with a major in history. Yeah. So we're excited about him. Thank you. Michelle Evans Oliver, a dedicated, and her story, all these stories are so fascinating. And she brought the girl power this summer among these guys. But you know, Michelle had a career as a financial advisor, and so she is reaching out and made a decision to make a transition career-wise. And so she's enrolled now in a master's program at ODU. Again, you'll hear more about that. Like, I want to do this work. And so, Michelle. And last but not least, Horace Scruggs. Now, tomorrow, he's making a presentation. I've heard his whole family sings, plays, same thing, church people. You got 8 siblings? Is 8 of you all? Yeah, so I have 7 siblings, so I understand all the singing and music and church going. But he's gonna be presenting tomorrow. Dr. Harrison will also be presenting tomorrow. So, please come and hear his musical talent. And again, I am at Preservation Virginia and in the Black Studies Department at VCU. You've heard about their projects. I want to take questions. So we're going to take this time to just answer any questions you have about the fellowship, about the work that they're doing. And I just want to kind of kick it off. And you said it in the video, but can you share with, as an opening, what this fellowship helped you to do? That if you didn't have this fellowship this summer, would you have pushed forward? You were doing the work already. But what did this fellowship do for you? So we'll start with you, Dr. Harrison. Now I got preachers and singers, and so it's just church today. Go ahead, Dr.
That was code language for don't take all of my time. I understand that. And she probably won't have to caution anybody else. What this has helped me to do is to organize 40 years of notes and interviews with older family members. And it has given some recognition to doing this work. This started really as a hobby to quench grief. I'm grieving the death of a dad, and this plunged me into the family's history, but it also put me in the homes of extended family members that helped to soothe the ache of grief. But Preservation Virginia has now made me take it, I think, to a different level. I want to package it such that the children can do something with it, and future generations will be able to, start their research from some that has already been done.
And I'll tell you too, I don't let them go. So they're still working with me. I'm still pulling on, as you can see today, I'm still pulling on them. And I'm an office of one. When we talk about community outreach, I'm it. And really, to be honest, as far as professional staff in the headquarters office, I'm the only person of color in an organization, only Black person that works for Preservation Virginia, and you've been founded 1889. And for the organization to say, this is something we've got to focus on. I'm not talking about interns, and I'm talking about professional staff that works for the organization. So I lean on them a lot. So go ahead, Michael.
Good afternoon. So for me, Preservation Virginia brought a whole different scope of me being a novelist, going into a cemetery that I ran through as a kid. And to help me put this on the map in the city, and also bringing more descendants to what we was doing. What wasn't shown on it is that 4 months after my mother had passed, I went to Douglas Cemetery, and it was flooded and had ducks swimming around in it. And if you looked at the beginning of the documentary, you saw apartment buildings. There were 2,200 people buried at Douglas Cemetery. There's only 600 headstones. So I've been pushing to say some of our people up under that building.
Yeah.
My grandfather's buried there, but we can't find his headstone. 4 of his brothers are buried there. His father is buried there, who came from Culpeper, Virginia. Y'all gonna laugh at this one. My great-great-grandfather was married 3 times. He had 33 kids. All right? But I also have about 5 other cousins and relatives that are professors at other universities. That's how I got back into College State University. But, one of the biggest push by me coming through, Preservation, Virginia and doing the research and doing the work, it has now shined light on Douglas Cemetery. Frederick Douglass spoke in Alexandria, Virginia in 1894. He died in 1895. So some believe that was his last public speech that he made. It was, the clergy people that basically purchased the land and named it after Frederick Douglass Cemetery. The whole thing that, in my perspective with Preservation, Virginia, is that now we know that Douglass Cemetery will not be erased because it's been put in the public's eye. Because my thoughts was that they were really trying to, like VCU, cover some things up, right? I'm not gonna allow it to happen. It's an ongoing, project, and again, thanks to Preservation, Virginia. I got the opportunity to travel and speak to others and get some input from, people like Michelle that work on the cemetery. I've been to Baltimore and Laurel Cemetery, where they turned it into a shopping center. So wherever there's a cemetery project, I want to be a part of it because either I can teach them or they can teach me, and that's what it's about. The Preservation, Virginia is learning to preserve our history.
So, good morning, everyone. This fellowship has done so much for me. I was able to retire, well, I retired in November 30th, 2024 as and sold my practice and fully immersed into preservation, genealogy, and history. I have been doing this work for the past 10, 12 years as a hobby. I'm a genealogist and I call it a financial historian because I love the numbers. In 2019, I started in Richmond, Virginia, a SOLID, Association for the Study of African American Life and History. In 2021 or 22, I can't remember, I was the president of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm on the board of the national board as well. But the thing is that I was doing it all as a hobby, and always researching, always doing family history. Woodson's coming out of Buckingham County, New Canton. So a lot of people know about that, and we have a Buckingham County person in front of me. We're not cousins yet, but
We just don't know it.
we just don't know it. But what it has done, it is actually it made me go back to school. I said I would never, ever go back to school, and I'm now at ODU. I'm getting my master's in library and information studies. And so it's and I want to be I don't know what I want to be, but maybe an archivist, maybe a COO of something at a library or a museum. I don't know, but whatever it is, this work has really gotten me by the coattail, and Preservation Virginia has pushed me into doing that.
So what I did for my project is I created a documentary. It was a 20-minute documentary, and it really focused on some of the historic sites in around Fluvanna County. So Fluvanna County is, I think of it, it's on the James River, as I stated, right across from New Canton. And so we are about 20 minutes southeast of Charlottesville, probably the best place to put it. And so there are a lot of public works that were created by enslaved Africans. And many of these enslaved Africans were hired out by their enslavers. Simply means that, you know, the county needs to build a jail, then I'm going to provide the labor and you're going to pay me. Well, the labor is, you know, is enslaved, so they're not getting anything out of it. And so what I came up with was a documentary that really shows those places in our county. And these are places that I've been driving past, walking past all my life, but didn't realize that part of my ancestry is tied to these brick and mortar buildings that we're looking at. And so with that documentary, I've been able to go and use it as a conversation piece with and going to local churches and then having conversations, because As been said many times, you know, a lot of us, we just don't know our history. We don't know, what we came from and what we have done for this nation as a whole. And so getting people to realize that really does, empower us to be more mindful about, our history.
That's wonderful. And I get, yes. And I get the pleasure of traveling all over Virginia. And I got to see each site and hang out with them. And so it's just amazing and mind blowing and heartbreaking to see, gosh, I mean, I can remember being out there with the National Trust team at Michael's site in Alexandria. And then you just crossed, it was 7 cemeteries over there.
13.
13.
Families, 13 total.
You just cross the street, literally, little road. And there's the Confederate cemetery. Nice, clean. There's a guy who's coming out there every day, just keeping it finely manicured. And you have these stones and these people who live in the condo. Think about the politics of it. They live in the condos. When it rains, everything floods. And you've got turtles and whatever, frogs there. And so they're like, save the frogs, save the turtles. I love turtles. I love frogs. I want to save it all. But no one's saying save the cemetery, save these graves. And so it is heartbreaking to see it. Yes.
Also, when you look at the picture of Douglas Cemetery, or if you go to historic Alexandria, you see the whole full picture, but right behind Douglas, it is ironic that James Mason is buried there. That's the grandson of George Mason. He wrote the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act. And every time I go over to visit my people in Douglas, I holler at him and say, what do you think about this?
So, again, I want to answer questions now. You might be sitting there saying, I can do that. I would love to spend the summer doing that. So just, these are gifted, talented folks, but they're regular people just like we are. And for them to be able to do that, and again, this is the second cohort, to be able to do this is just amazing. You're doing it already. And it's fascinating to see. So I'm gonna stop talking. Yes, please, come with your question.
My name is Colette Roots. I started from family visiting graveyards. My mother's been taking me since I was 3 and 2. Of course, she said Charleston is always immaculate, their graveyards. But my father is from here. I started when my mother passed away, Oak Grove Cemetery on Watermill Road.
And you're referring to Williamsburg here.
To
Okay.
Williamsburg. We are on the James River, New York River, and connected to Surrey. So all our people are from Surrey.
So you are
Gloucester, Kent, King, Queen, all of us. But anyway, I started off making Oak Grove Cemetery historic. We are 2 on the Eastern District that have every African-American soldier in every war.
Wow.
One is right here in Williamsburg and one is in Chesapeake. So I made Oak Grove Cemetery historic. I made Oak Grove Church historic. We started out at Camp Perry. They took our church. They took our Oak Grove School. They took our farmland. And not only did they do it once, they did it 3 times. We have babies that's over there on Watermill Road that used to have a right of way. They historic now too on the National Historic. But our families fought because they got tired of them keeping them from one place to another. At the time, the white dentist that was out there, he gave the church bought land for $50. The babies are out there now with no right of way. They own Watermill Road, which is the plantation owner from some of our family. I'm fighting now. I did get the right of way, but we don't have the road yet. I'm fighting for the story. I'm fighting for they found out with the help of the College of Women Married, we found our old school place. We knew where it was, but we actually found it. We knew where the church was, but we didn't know it was 2 Camp Perry before the Naval Weapons Station. So with me being here is God's favor for today, because my passion is I work with seniors on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to get information from them. And I wasn't gonna take off, but it's God favored that I'm here right now.
Mhm.
Because when you, and like you said, I'm not the 1%.
Right.
I'm just the labor. I'm just the person that can go to 17 grave sites in Winsburg that we all are connected. From reservation, from Fort Lee, Fort Monroe, all of us. And when you say in the river, I just need help. I like to know now that I know that I can reach out for those babies to be able to be covered, because the mothers had to get permission from every person that took over at Camp Perry to bury their babies.
Mm.
And they were in a battle, and the Bartlett family was sued when we did win from the Buck Trout funeral home that had buried. And now it's a white funeral home. They claim they don't have our records, but how you not have our records? You know, how you not have the records of our own relatives? I'm glad to be here. I'm emotional drained. I am tired, but I know I'm refreshed and revived from what happened earlier. Now I'm even more revived. My cousin and I, and a lot of all of us, when I'm telling the story now, I'm taking them around. I'm letting them see the James River, the York River, the Chickahominy River, how we connected. The water plant that supplies all this water in Winsburg is our farmland they took. That was the last piece they took from us. So I'm just glad, and now I know I got help.
Yeah.
Most of my problem is getting grant writers, getting people to be able to say, what's going on here?
It's almost amazing how you can almost close your eyes and the story is the same. It's just the different people. We're looking for grants, you're looking for grants. Somebody took your property, somebody took our property. And it's being perpetuated, you know, and how can we, hopefully through things like this, the symposium, how can we stop, you know, the powers that be? How can we interfere? How can we disrupt what's taking place? So I'm hoping again that you will take something, you know, even if it's just the Amen Corner. Yeah, I feel your pain, you know, because we're going through the same thing. And I like the energy that's, you know, for example, I'm just thinking about with Evergreen, how Michelle has digitized, and you saw her roaming through the books that are at the funeral home, those very old books. And she said they're just laying out there at the funeral home. So she's digitizing all of the information that's in those booklets. And it's amazing that when I saw her presentation and just these spreadsheets where you could just see the names, how much it costs to bury somebody, you know, who is buried next to whom. I mean, it is amazing to see. We can take those things from each other and utilize those tools to make it happen for us. Yeah.
Yes, when we went, not to interrupt, when we went to get the sites historic, afterwards they came up to me and said, did you know you're the only one out of all the counties in Virginia that fit all 5 criteria? And I said, of course. You took the church, you took the school, you took the farm. That wasn't wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
That was tears to know that we, you know, I sit there all day and listen to all the historic stuff and all of that. But when I left out there, I was proud to go back and tell the families that we historic. But I was sad because I didn't know, being born in 1959, about how much they endured.
Yeah. And identifying those people who can help you overcome some of those, you know, I'm thinking about, I visited with the Chickahominy tribal nation, and there was a donor, again, I'd come from this fundraising background, but there was a donor who owned some of the property that was theirs. And he was like a son or a grandson, and he gave it back to the Chickahominy most recently. And I called him, I said, thank you. Thank you for doing that. But, you know, you don't run into that every day.
Where I've been blessed with is that been in the Marine Corps, so sometimes one of the things that also with Preservation Virginia I didn't allude or talk about was that when I first went at the city, and I worked for the city, and they said, well, you know, you might be jeopardizing your job. And then once you go to the website, you'll see the actual interview I did with the news media up there. And I said, well, if I have to lose my job to get this place straight, I just lost my job. The other part of it is after that, we acquired 500,000 from the state. And we just recently received another 500,000 from the state. Now, we might be ahead of getting that money from the state, so y'all might be short, but I'm just saying. When I first attacked that cemetery, the guy, one of the city archaeologists, I was asking him too many questions. He kept saying, "Who are you?" And I said, "Don't worry about it, just answer the question," right? He said, "Well, I think you need to speak with my boss." So he sent me all the way to the top. And me and her was going at it. And I said, "Look, either you gonna keep your job or I'm gonna lose mine, or somebody gonna lose their job." But the one thing that came out of it is once Preservation Virginia stepped in, it was just like a whole different light shined on everything and everybody. Because it was just me at first. And then I found so far 125 descendants around the country. And every quarter we put out a newsletter on Douglas. Because I want to make sure that even though we know it's 600 headstones that we can account for, I have the record of 2,200. And if I can find all 2,200 descendants and stakeholders, that's my mission.
Then Michael, didn't you have an issue with the sign out there like?
Oh, yeah,
here?
the sign, yeah. First the sign was about the size of the phone. Then they came back with a sign and had 1827 on it. Then they come back with another sign that said 1895. But when I was doing my research, it was that people were being buried there way before. The city just recognized it as 1895 because they were following, and there's one gentleman, I give him all the credit, Dr. Pittenger, you know, who I met, he lived down in Tappahannock. And he just said, whatever you find that I did wrong, please let me know because you have a different mindset, you have different data that you can acquire that I couldn't. And I said, the first thing is we gotta get the right data on there because they said 1895, but that followed because of, again, Frederick Douglass' death and all that. But yeah, but no, I'm the only African-American that sits on the city's archaeological committee. And we have to be in those rooms and always tell people, my mother used to tell me, if you don't get here by 5 o'clock, then you don't eat because you're not at the table. That's the whole premise of me getting into those type of things. I'm not ashamed to be, I don't feel indifferent sitting in a room with scholars. You know, my aunt keeps telling me I'm a scholar. I said, well, not yet. Let me get this degree and I can be a plan. But the best thing is that me coming into Preservation Virginia is that I know exactly who to connect with in order to preserve the history of Douglas. You know, and again, my great-grandfather, like her, my great-grandfather was the oldest kid of my great-great-grandfather. So I carry their name, and I understand that they were either farmers or laborers. And I know my great-great-grandfather was a farmer, his son was a laborer, but this guy was born into slavery, and then he saw freedom. So every time I tried to attach myself to how was it being enslaved and then being free. But I would say push every city council member, every mayor, every state legislature to get the funding to preserve these historical sites.
We have a question about.
I just want to follow up on the connections that
Mhm.
the gentleman just talked about. And I'm wondering whether or not you all are connected to or aware of WikiTree that is doing a global and certainly national and global exploration documentation of Black churches and Black cemeteries, African American cemeteries. So I'm just wondering if that.
I'm not, I'm just hearing that from you, so,
It's not only national, but even global.
wow.
African. So, and they have a special project set
Mhm.
aside
Mhm.
specifically targeted on a national level for Black churches and Black cemeteries.
That's great.
They're collecting data across.
So, and here's where you find at a symposium like this, all the information, so that we can share it. You know, one thing you don't want to do is hog it. Hog information. Let's share it. Let's, you know, if you don't know how to do a historic marker or whatever, you know, we get calls all the time. I got something in the backyard. I don't know what it is. You know, can you come check it out? I'm watching what Michael's descendant group is doing, and we're trying to formulate descendant groups at our own properties. Bacon's Castle is doing pretty good. Scotchtown is starting. There's a slave cemetery, at Scotchtown, privately owned. The owner is very, open, and please come over here. Please, let's clean it up. We want to share the information. So let's make sure that we, work together.
My contact with Wiki.
Yes.
They have a national program that's,
Yeah.
with the Lemon Project.
It's the
Wiki Tree Black Heritage.
Wiki Tree Black Heritage Project.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that I found that in, this work, there's genealogists, there's preservationists, and there's historians. And so what I'm trying to do is merge all of them together, because when I go places, I see that there are genealogists, but the public historians or even the historians, they don't talk to each other. So we kind of all work in silos. But Wikitree is more like for me, a genealogical thing. So just for me, but a lot of people don't know. And so when you have that information is powerful for everyone in the room and everyone in Zoom land, to even hear that information so that we can cross the borders.
Yeah, I don't speak for Wiki, but I happen to be in the room with national conversations around specifically Black African American cemeteries. And so I'm just kind of that voice.
Yeah.
I know the person that I was in the room with is connected with the Lemon Project, and has been invited to one of the round tables later on. So I'll make sure that, because I know that there's a dedicated team.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to say, for me, growing up in Texas, one of my favorite things was to go to the cemeteries with we still do this presently. But going down all the roads and stuff, for the family, what is this? And how did they come into place? And so I know my mom has recently started getting headstones for those who did not within the family. And as you were talking today, I was starting to think about maybe one of the reasons that contributes to me wanting to work so hard to accomplish things so that my final resting place is in a place that will be remembered. I know I remember all the stories that my mima and everyone told me. And so when you were talking about connection and you doing that research, I'm just curious, are you looking to publish any of the stories and stuff that you found for those stories to continue to live on?
Yes, Dr. Harrison.
I'm grooming my son.
He's a writer.
Who works for a publisher. And I'm bringing him into this, and he seems to be very interested. I will also suggest those of you who are talking about cemeteries, do not forget when you're visiting these older family members, those family Bibles, because a lot of the unrecognized graves, and this is a little event that happened with me, I had no clue where the generation, 2-3 generations ahead of me were buried. But I discovered a family Bible that gave me a whole list of people who were buried between 1880 and 1893, including my great-grandfather. But the Bible was very explicit and shared where the cemeteries were. So look at those Bibles.
For me, I think documenting those, let me do this back up. So I've met at least 50 descendants, people buried in Douglas, and we're doing the oral history. And because one of my cousins has already written some books, she definitely wants me to finish up so we can start on the book on Douglas. One of the people that's buried at Douglas, a lot of people don't know this person's name, but his name is H.M. Murray. And he was with W.E.B. Du Bois with the Niagara Project. And he also ran sort of an underground type of railroad in Alexandria, because whenever there was fear of someone being lynched, he would show them how to escape and get on the boat, because we right close to the water anyway. I grew up 2 blocks from Robert E. Lee's boyhood home and 15 minutes from George Washington home. But finding the history about him was very important. And then I started, it's a Reverend Jenkins. He was born in 1802 and died in 1903. So his story is very fascinating. to me, I just have to locate relative, but the church that he preached at is still standing. The thing about it is everything around it has changed. And they were trying to pretty much get the pastor that's there now. They don't allow them to park on the right-hand side of the street on Sundays. Because I work with the city and I told them I'm going to retire maybe in January. We've now got parking spots for that church. And it's one of the oldest churches in Alexandria, and when you go into that church, nothing has changed. So every time you walk in there, people talk about spirituality and all that. I'm always like, I don't have any habit. It raises up, you can feel it. But I think writing books and documenting these things, getting them out, that we all need to do that, because that's the only way we're gonna put it out there in the public, venue for the public.
Yes.
So two things really quickly. Lunch is ready for everybody. So I'm gonna ask one quick question
Okay.
from the Zoom, and that might be our last one.
Yes, that's fine.
So Chantel asks, what are the best ways to get involved in preserving historic Black sites like cemeteries, churches, and the like? She says in her question that it's difficult for her because county and cities often aren't cooperating. So I don't know if this is open to the entire panel, if anybody wants to give a brief answer to that.
Can you talk about those organizations that you're involved in, Michelle, too? Horace, go ahead.
Sure, I'm very much involved with our historical society in Fluvanna County. And, historical societies.
Black and white. Black and white.
Yes.
Society,
I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
It depends upon your county and the people who run your historical society, whether they're going to be very open to being involved in African-American history. I am fortunate that in our county, our historical society is very much involved in historical churches, Black churches, Rosenwald schools, Washington Rosenwald schools, as well as the cemeteries. So I think that's a place to start. If those organizations are not privy to African-American history, then I think you get involved and you get around like-minded people and start your own.
And Dr. Harrison, you're a part of the Historic Society.
I have one question, National Forestry, because we in Winsburg with all of our church, our school was taken. When y'all go down Interstate 64, our school was taken to Interstate 64.
I also want to say.
We was trying to get a brown sign, and it's after you all. We're trying to make, because we got to go to James City County, City, Winsburg, York County. I am trying to make sure that our family, since you took the third church in the school for the Interstate 64, we are trying to get National Forestry to help us put a sign up. This interstate was taken our school was taken for the interstate, and they would not even open up with me.
I think you two should connect,
Okay.
Michael and Michelle.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
After
about
this.
interrupting, but that's
No,
one
that's
of my main, that's one of our
Yeah.
family main goals. You took almost 40 acres and don't want
Yeah.
to replicate.
And we'll close out with your.
My last plug is, join organizations, African-American organizations, in your area, in your community. And shameless plug, AUGS, it is the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. It was, 1945. We have chapters in Richmond and Hampton Roads, everywhere. So join those societies and they will be able to help you with all different types of people, places, things, and connections. So that's my shameless plug, and thank you all for being here today.
So, thank you all. And you all have homework. So go to the Preservation Virginia website, type in African American Fellowship. The application is out there. The deadline is Monday, April the 7th. And thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. Oh,